Yolanda Hadid is one of the most complex women ever to appear on the Real Housewives franchise. She is not a villain. She is not a fool. She is not a victim in the simple, clean way that makes a good television arc. She is something harder to categorize, a woman who was dealt genuinely devastating cards by life and then, in the way she chose to play those cards, made choices that cost her far more than the illness and the heartbreak alone ever could have. So, today we are going to go ahead and break it all down. Not to tear her down, but to tell the full truth of a story that the cameras only captured part of, because the full story of Yolanda Hadid deserves to be told honestly. Let's start at the very beginning, because where Yolanda comes from matters enormously to understanding who she became. Yolanda van den Herik was born on January 11, 1964 in Papendrecht, a small town in the Netherlands. Her father died in a car accident when Yolanda was just 7 years old. A 7-year-old girl in the Netherlands loses her father, and from that moment forward, the woman she would become was shaped by the combination of grief, resilience, and an almost pathological need to hold things together, to be strong, to be capable, to never let anything fully break her. She began modeling at the age of 16, and by 17, she had moved to Paris to pursue the career full-time. She worked with some of the biggest names in the industry and built a legitimate career as an international model throughout the 1980s. In 1994, at the age of 30, Yolanda married Mohammed Hadid, a Palestinian-born American real estate developer who had made his fortune building luxury hotels and mansions in the Los Angeles area. They had 3 children: Gigi, born in 1995, Bella, born in 1996, and Anwar, born in 1999. And then the marriage fell apart. Yolanda confirmed publicly in her Bravo blog years later that infidelity was the cause. Infidelity did, she wrote, addressing the reason for their split. They divorced in 2000. She was 36 years old, a single mother of 3 in a foreign country, and the marriage she had built her American life around was over. She moved their family to a ranch in Santa Barbara and raised those children with the same fierce, organized, committed energy that she brought to everything she did. And then she met David Foster. David Foster is one of the most accomplished music producers in the history of the industry, 16 Grammy Awards. He is a man who existed at the highest level of Hollywood and Los Angeles society. They met through Mohammed Hadid, whom David knew, and quickly fell in love. David proposed on Christmas Eve 2010. They married on November 11, 2011 in Beverly Hills. She was 47. He was on his 4th marriage with 5 children from his 3 previous wives. Between them, they had 8 children. Nobody said it was going to be simple. And then the show happened. Yolanda joined the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills in Season 3 in 2012. And when she joined, she arrived with a presence and a clarity of purpose that was unlike anyone else in that cast. She was not there to make friends or enemies. She was not playing a character. She was Yolanda Dutch, direct, organized to a fault, a devoted mother with an immaculate kitchen and a glass refrigerator full of lemons and nothing else. She introduced herself to the audience with a calm, regal energy that made her immediately compelling. She did not need to flip a table or scream to command attention. She just showed up and people paid attention. But underneath the lemon refrigerator and the Malibu mansion and the marriage to a Grammy-winning producer, something was already very wrong. Yolanda had begun experiencing symptoms that she could not explain: brain fog so severe she could not remember her children's phone number, fatigue that made getting off the floor feel like a monumental achievement, migraines, joint pain, anxiety, and a cognitive decline that was as frightening as it was invisible to the outside world. In 2012, she was diagnosed with Lyme disease. And that diagnosis, and the way she chose to navigate it publicly and privately, is where the story of how Yolanda Hadid's life began to unravel. Let's talk about the Lyme disease journey in full. Because this disease is genuinely devastating and under-researched, and Yolanda's willingness to speak about it publicly contributed meaningfully to broader awareness. Lyme disease is caused by the bacterium Borrelia burgdorferi and is transmitted through the bite of infected black-legged ticks. When caught early and treated with antibiotics, it is often manageable. When it goes undiagnosed or inadequately treated and becomes chronic, it can produce a constellation of debilitating neurological and physical symptoms that the mainstream medical community remains divided on how to address. Yolanda believes she and her children contracted the disease while living on their Santa Barbara ranch, spending time outdoors in a tick-heavy environment without adequate awareness of the risk. Here's the first major way the Lyme disease situation began to shape and eventually damage Yolanda's life. When she started documenting her illness on Rob and social media, she shared details of her treatments that were, to put it plainly, extreme. She had 17 surgeries over the course of her treatment journey, including breast implant removal, removal of her amalgam tooth fillings, and a TIVM procedure. She traveled the globe seeking treatments. She shared images of herself receiving 4 drips and experimental therapies. She wrote a memoir titled Believe Me, My Battle with the Invisible Disability of Lyme Disease. She was unstoppable in her advocacy, and that advocacy helped people. She became one of the most prominent public voices for Lyme disease awareness in the country. But the sheer volume and the intimacy of what she shared on social media and on the show created a problem. Because while Yolanda was documenting every treatment and every setback and every hospital visit, some of those treatments fell outside mainstream medicine. And some of the images she shared, particularly images that appeared staged or curated despite the context being a serious illness, gave her cast members ammunition to question whether what they were seeing was entirely authentic. And this is where the Munchausen conversation entered the story. In Season 6 of Rob, Lisa Rinna on camera and in front of the group introduced the word Munchausen. Munchausen syndrome is a psychiatric condition in which a person fabricates or induces illness to draw attention and sympathy. It is one of the most devastating things you can say about a person who is genuinely suffering. And Yolanda Hadid was genuinely suffering. What we know now, confirmed by Lisa Rinna herself in her memoir and confirmed by Rob executive producer Chris Cullen in the tell-all book Not All Diamonds and Rose, is that Lisa Rinna did not arrive at that word independently. Lisa Vanderpump had pushed Rinna to bring up the Munchausen rumor on camera. Rinna was, in her own words, molded like clay into a henchwoman doing Vanderpump's bidding. Rinna wrote in her memoir, Vanderpump masterminded the whole Yolanda Hadid situation and how I took the bait. She caused it all. I will be forever sorry for this moment. Yolanda said publicly that the Munchausen accusation was the biggest blow of her life, not the illness, not the divorce, the accusation that she was faking it, and the divorce. Because we need to talk about the divorce. Yolanda and David Foster announced their separation on December 1, 2015, the same season that the Munchausen allegations were being thrown at her on television. Their divorce was finalized in May 2017. Yolanda has been clear that the illness contributed to the end of the marriage. In her memoir, she wrote that David struggled with her illness, with the medical bills, with the attention the show brought to their lives, and with the complexity of blending 2 large families under one roof. David Foster publicly said in interviews that having his decades-long musical career overshadowed by questions about Rob was humiliating. I've got 16 Grammys, he reportedly wanted to say to reporters. And while both parties kept many of the details private, the picture that emerged was of a man who had not fully signed up for marriage that a sick wife, a reality show, and 8 children between them had produced. The divorce left Yolanda alone in her late 50s fighting a chronic illness, off the show that had both defined and complicated her public identity, and separated from the man she had described as her partner in a very public and very romantic way for years. David went on to marry singer Katharine McPhee, a woman young enough to be his daughter, in 2019. That image of David Foster moving on so publicly with someone so much younger must have stung in a way that was very hard to present gracefully. And Yolanda, for her part, never handled it entirely gracefully. The comparison was unavoidable, and she knew it. She entered a relationship with real estate developer Joseph Gingoli after her divorce from David was finalized. They dated from approximately 2019 until 2025, a 6-year relationship that ultimately did not result in marriage. And in the context of everything else going on in her life simultaneously, the quiet end of that relationship in 2025 barely registered in the public conversation, but it was another ending in a string of endings. Now, let's talk about Zayn Malik, because this is one of the most misunderstood chapters of Yolanda's story, and it deserves a full accounting. In September 2021, reports broke that Zayn Malik, the former One Direction singer who had been in an on-and-off relationship with Yolanda's daughter Gigi for 6 years, and who was the father of Gigi's daughter Kai, had been involved in a physical altercation with Yolanda at the home he shared with Gigi in Pennsylvania. Court documents obtained by TMZ alleged that Malik shoved Yolanda into a dresser, causing her physical pain and mental anguish. He denied making physical contact, saying the allegations were false, but he did plead no contest to 4 criminal harassment charges, was fined, placed on probation for 1 year, and ordered to complete anger management and a domestic violence program. He was also ordered to have no contact with Yolanda or a security guard who was also present during the incident. The details in the police report were ugly. Malik allegedly called Yolanda a FNG Dutch and told her to stay away from my FNG daughter. He screamed at Gigi by phone during the incident. A source told People that while Malik didn't slap Yolanda, he allegedly put her in an aggressive hold. Another source told People that Yolanda cannot stand him, and Zayn's camp reportedly felt that Yolanda was inserting herself into a situation that does not involve her. What makes this chapter complicated is the position it put Gigi in. Gigi Hadid had been in a relationship with Malik for 6 years. They had a child together. The altercation between her mother and her child's father played out in court documents and in the press, created a family situation of extraordinary difficulty. Gigi and Zayn subsequently ended their relationship. Yolanda and Gigi had to navigate a co-parenting dynamic between Gigi and Zayn while simultaneously being at the center of a criminal case. And in the years since, Bella Hadid has been dealing with the ongoing devastation of chronic Lyme disease, hospitalized in September 2025, posting tearful images of herself receiving treatment. Posting images that prompted a backlash against Yolanda herself for allegedly sharing her daughter's hospital photos for attention. Because this is the thing about Yolanda Hadid that is the hardest to say directly. Her relationship with the public documentation of pain, her own and her children's, has never been calibrated correctly. The same impulse that made her such a powerful Lyme disease advocate, the willingness to show everything, to share the hospital beds and the 4 drips and the tearful speeches at the Global Lyme Alliance Gala, is the same impulse that has repeatedly cost her. When she shared those images of Bella in the hospital in September 2025, the backlash was immediate. Radar Online reported that sources felt Yolanda was posting for attention. People online questioned whether Bella had consented to the level of detail being shared. And Yolanda herself ultimately acknowledged that she had stepped back from sharing her own story because she needed an energetic shift and acknowledgement that the public documentation of suffering had a cost she had not fully anticipated. And then, there is the conversation that nobody in the Yolanda Hadid discourse wants to have about her relationship with her daughter's bodies. A clip resurfaced repeatedly over the years, Gigi as a young teenager at a birthday party reaching for a piece of cake and Yolanda stopping her. The body-shaming conversation around Yolanda and her daughters has been uncomfortable and has never been fully resolved. Bella Hadid herself said publicly that she struggled with body image and with the pressure of growing up in a modeling household. The connection between Yolanda's own history as a professional model, her documented management of her daughter's food and appearance, and Bella's public acknowledgement of body image struggles is a thread that runs through the Hadid family story in a way that Yolanda has never directly addressed to the satisfaction of the people raising it. Here is what I want to say in closing. Yolanda Hadid is not a bad person. She is a woman who survived the death of her father at 7 years old, built an international modeling career from nothing, raised 3 children alone after a marriage ended by infidelity, fought a devastating chronic illness that her own community and her own castmates questioned the validity of, went through the public destruction of a second marriage, watched her child's father be criminally charged for an altercation in her daughter's home, and spent more than a decade advocating for a disease that she and 2 of her 3 children are still fighting as of 2026. None of that is a ruined life by the measure of what most people survive. It is a hard life, an extraordinarily hard life. But the ways in which Yolanda contributed to her own difficulties, the overdocumentation of private pain, the blurred lines between advocacy and performance, the public sharing of her children's suffering in ways that generated backlash rather than support, the choices around her daughter's bodies and appearances that have never been fully examined, those things matter too. The cameras gave her a platform to tell her story, and in some important ways, she used that platform in ways that cost her more than the illness, the divorce, and the Munchausen accusation combined. Like I always say, the strongest people are not always the ones who show their strength the most. Sometimes, strength is knowing what to keep private, and Yolanda Hadid never fully learned that lesson. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Please make sure you guys hit this video with a like. Feel free to share the video, and most importantly, make sure you're still subscribed to the channel, and I'll talk to y'all later.